What's up, guys? So we're back for the rain time. I know I was a little shabby with this one. Totally missed the release date. I do apologize about that. So let's hop into it. Maybe it was the sickening air that hung in my room, or the realization that it was finally time to unenroll from university, that mind killing institution that spirals around truth in an endless dance of death. But after 3 lonely weeks of hiding in my room, I returned to Bremersburg. It's as if the number of training studios has only increased during my absence. Through a shop window, I discern a group of finely dressed men smoking a hookah, and the sight arouses a reassuring revulsion in me, as it proves that, during my absence, the city has transformed into something that's essentially foreign to me. There's a tension hanging in the air, as if it could start raining any minute. "I'm carbon neutral" is written in green lettering on the back of a passing trolley bus. I can see the passengers packed tightly together, fighting for elbow room in the belly of the beast. In an attempt to find out what time it is, I mechanically take out my phone from my pocket. But before I've even registered its lifeless display, I remember that the battery has died more than 2 weeks ago. Damn. The only reason I still carry the thing around is that I feel naked without its weight resting securely against my outer thigh. I should wear my glasses, guys. There we go. Occasionally, I'm still startled by phantom tremors, a sudden shiver, cascading through my loins as if they were vibrating in my pocket. Fortunately, it's an increasingly rare occurrence. A parking meter. 14:32. I've been awake for 15 hours. After a while, I find myself lost in the gracious revolutions of a curling willow that's glowing on a gable garden. I'm not sure what that is. I've never heard of that. I absorb each of its branches individually before stepping backwards in order to behold the tree in all its otherworldly beauty. I can see it all so clearly now. The familiar haze is gone. I haven't had alcohol since finishing the last of my old gull from breakfast. I'm handling withdrawal remarkably well. A traffic light turns to red, and the traffic that runs south over the inner ring drips to a tense halt. The driving of the black, whatever that is, we'll say car, next to me has left its engine running, filling the street with dark blue smoke. The exhaust gases make my eyes water. I gasp for air, but this only causes my lungs to fill with more of the toxic fumes. The music is so funny, and it oh man, and it feels like the city is penetrating me, stretching out into the depths of my respiratory system, making me into an extension of itself. I cough and leave the inner ring as quickly as possible. But even as I pass through the alleyways, more than half an hour later, it still feels like something immeasurably great has been deep inside of me. Oh. Two girls are coming my way. One's pretty in a light pink sweater, the other's plain. Their sweet perfumes are intoxicating to me. As they walk by, they suddenly start giggling between themselves, and there's something about their laughter that leaves me with the impression that it's me they're making fun of. I can feel my pace grow uncertain. And I'm reminded of a thought that I came up with once, but disregarded at the time. Suppose there is a human child that is raised by wolves. Now, suppose that child is never found by civilization, so that it always has to remain with the pack. What happens to that child? Does it grow into one of his fellow wolves? Or does he find out after a while that he's fundamentally different? I pause for a second, because I want to hold on to the thought. I'm near the square, and might be distracted when I reach it. Of course, it's not about external differences, because everyone knows that wolves have sharper teeth and better sense of smell than humans. But what happens to the child internally? Does he learn to behave like a wolf? To talk like a wolf? Does he learn to think like a wolf? If a person has no peers to mirror himself to, how will he ever know whether he is human or wolf? Is there something inalienable human about us all that always rises to the surface, even in total isolation? He's got a good thought running. The girls are gone now, out of sight. Definitely something to think about, guys. Now that the holidays are over, the square leaves a deserted impression, gaping in the middle of the city like a swollen abscess. My fears have been unfounded. Because the stench of cars and perfume is still hanging in my nostrils, I entertain the thought of returning to Rybury. But I won't, in the end, as it isn't better in any way. Rybury is connected to the city through a 3-mile pipeline that pumps around noxious fumes 24 hours a day in an infallible rhythm of 58 explosions per second. The rhythm controls everything, the streets, the houses, even my lungs. Wherever I may wander. I stopped by the liquor store to purchase a bottle of Tanqueray. A flight of pigeons filtered through the shopping streets, the sound of their wings reminiscent of a huge timepiece that slowly set in motion. Since I've made up my mind to unenroll, I head towards the university quarter. Oh, okay. The chorus of the latest hit by Mother Band is blasting from a clothing store nearby. Slaves to our reality, victims of morality, the lead singer keeps mumbling in a monotone voice. Slaves to our reality, victims of morality. I laugh at its stupidity. There's something off about pop songs. No matter how meaningful their lyrics try to be, the nagging 4/4 signature always makes them sound tacky. We've become spoiled children, ruminating disinterestedly on our shallow existence. The weak excuse for a conversation I had with Lars on New Year's Eve feels like a lifetime ago. I resign myself to the fact that I may never have to face him again. Oh, come on, I miss Lars. In the end, I'm probably more of a poet than a philosopher. No longer do I feel the need to conjure earth-shattering paradigms because, well, if you look closely, you'll see there's congruence in everything around us. At first, I wanted to lead nations, but now I'd be content to even help one person find their way. The students of this city are like laborers. At night, they drink away the doctrines that they've internalized during the daytime, because their implications sound entirely too alienating to be true. and their lecturers are teachers of oblivion. The more thoroughly their students prove they haven't understood the first thing of their coursework, the higher their marks, and the more striking the letters of recommendation that accompany their diplomas. The only letter of recommendation I need is one stating that I have learned all, and therefore nothing. You can address it to my ruination professor. This guy. The rock song turns into a baby blast from the shop next door, which in turn melts seamlessly into serious sounding hip hop from the jean store opposite the street. Is he talking about Justin Bieber? All tunes have the same rhythm of the flapping of pigeons and the waves of the sea. I realize that a 4/4 signature beat must resound continuously throughout existence, pulling all of life along with it, everywhere in the world, into the darkest depths of the ocean. We're closing in a minute, he says kindly. Isn't that nerd from the library? But I can squeeze you in if you're quick. It's the same guy I spoke to last time, but for some reason he doesn't seem to recognize me. I've come to unenroll, I say. You can do that online. One click, and you're rid of us for good. I don't have internet access at the moment, I reply. Can't we just do it here? The office is brightly lit with fluorescent lights. It's situated in a corner of the Faculty of Literature, overlooking a narrow courtyard where students can smoke. But no one smokes anymore. Wish I had the guts, he remarks comfortingly as he looks me up in the system. I see you still have a few library fees. Oh boy, he whispers. It's a total of $637.95. Do you want to pay that right now? You can also do it in installments. Send me an invoice, I mutter. He nods understandingly and fidgets about on his computer for a bit. Well, that's that, he concludes. Then he pauses for a moment. Say, the university is curious about what motivates students to deregister prematurely. Is it okay if we email you a short questionnaire? I think you can win something. I don't have internet, I remind him. He looks fidgety, as if confused. Well, try enrolling for another major next year, he starts. You can probably transfer some of your points. I don't have any points, I interrupt him with a smile. But what are you going to do? He asks me, no longer capable of concealing his morbid curiosity. Just go out and look for a job? A subtle pride washes over me as I relish in the thought that I can't have worked more than 5 combined hours in my entire life. However, I don't feel like feeding his pity. Nah, I've made it big. Built my own company. Few people working under me now. It's running pretty well. For a moment, he doesn't seem to believe me. And then a smile appears on his face, and he claps his hands a few times in slow motion. That's great, man. So what line of business are you in? Oh, just e-commerce. We sell underwear for overweight people. I smile. He pauses. I thought you said you didn't have internet. I'm becoming careless. The games are starting to bore me. Jeez. A huge weight falls off my shoulders as I leave the university quarter, like I finally silenced a small, gnawing part of my conscience. of which nothing remains other than a slight residing disappointment, a lingering trace of sadness that becomes more diluted with every sip I take. It's growing darker. The pollution from the cars doesn't bother me anymore, and it's an euphoric high that I walk along the ring road. The endless theme of tests and obligations that has made up my life so far has finally come to an abrupt end. It feels as though existence itself has gained new quality. There's an immediate necessity within me now. I have nothing to do, nowhere to go. I could either persist here for a second or remain forever. I'm a nuclear bomb lying in a silo that might lie dormant till the end of days, but equally has the potential to wreak apocalyptic devastation at less than a moment's notice. I kick a piece of plastic onto the road, and the motorist honks at me furiously. I'm disappointed he won't even come out of his car. Coward. I've never really fought in my life. Although it's getting late, I'm starting to feel fit. A little drunk even. A little drunk even. But the kind of drunk that gets you riled up. I'll have to eat something soon to keep me going. I bend off towards the harbor. The city is steeped in a mysterious aura. It's as if the streets are full of new possibilities, the adventures hidden behind every lamppost. I'm no longer annoyed by the prying eyes of the passerby. I take my bottle from its bag and set it to my lips. The bittersweet spice rushes down my throat, casting a golden sheen over my eyes that sands off the sharp edges. I'm leaving school to become a drunk, you guys. Professionally this time. And as I sip the narrow bottle back into my inner pocket, the catenary wires of the trolley buses suddenly take up all my attention, causing me to unintentionally drop the empty bag on the street. I'm fascinated. Oh, I'm going to become a hobo. Shit, I just thought about that. This is how it starts. I'm fascinated by the sharpness with which the wires are spun across the twilight sky. They're drawn so meticulously, splitting up the vibrant clouds like cheese wire. And I'm so completely overcome by emotion that I turn back to pick up the plastic bag I just dropped. The screeching of seagulls resounds in the distance. When I arrive in the harbor, I see them circling above an elderly man who's sprinkling out bread. I walk up to the breakwater. A fresh evening wind is blowing towards me. No ships to be seen. The sky is shining a bright orange now. The sun's floating just above the horizon, as if it has always been hanging there. I look over to the wind farm. The turbines are colored pitch black by the backlight from the dying sun. Their blades are spinning harmlessly, peacefully, like giant bowling pins. I avert my eyes and attempt to save the image to memory. And for a while, I stand and watch the sun crawl closer towards the horizon until it eventually disappears, millimeter by millimeter, behind the earth. Then the tears come to my eyes, and I let out a shiver that cascades down my back, enclosing my entire body. The screams of the gulls grow fainter and fainter, and then I hear a noise in the distance. Somebody must have spiked me with PCP, bro. Lost in thought. I reach a large E-Mart. It must be past dinner time now. I feel a slight reluctance to enter the store, but proceed anyway, as everything here closes at 9 and I have no idea when that will be. I'm greeted at the door by a tottering vagrant who tries to sell me a newspaper. He's intoxicated, visibly drunk, something that pleases me greatly. And I'm not in the least bit hungry. With great effort, I try to find something I'm able to eat, but the matter seems of such triviality that I don't even want to acknowledge it. Eventually, I pick up a few products, quite at random, and proceed towards checkout. It's nothing special, a bag of chips, some potato salad, a roll of custard creams, processed cheese. Lying on the conveyor belt, they create an unreal impression, as if they aren't food at all, but extraterrestrial plastic objects. As I leave the store, the vagrant addresses me. "Hey man, how'd you do in there?" he roars enthusiastically. "Want a paper?" But there's something off about the man. It's like he's acting more drunk than he actually is. He's putting on a show to sell more newspapers. "Are you drunk?" I ask. "No, man," he laughs. "Just happy. How are you doing?" "I'm Eddie." He holds out his hand, but I decline to shake it. I do, however, hand him his bag of groceries. Or hand him my bag of groceries. "Are you hungry, Eddie?" I ask. "You can have these if you want." First, he casts me a suspicious glance, but then he takes the bag and stares and starts evaluating its contents. "You know what? I'm not really that hungry," he replies after a while. "But I'll have those cookies." He fishes the packet of custard creams from the bag and hands the rest back to me. I nod, but as I'm about to walk away, I suddenly realize the whole absurdity of the situation. I turn around and grab the packet from his hands. "No, Eddie, that's not how it works," I shout at him. "I'm offering you this food because you're hungry, so you're not just taking the creams from the bag. If you really were hungry, you'd take everything. It's all or nothing. You can't cherry pick your offerings." I put the custard creams back in with the other groceries. At first, Eddie seems taken aback, but then a cocky, aggravated expression appears on his weathered face. "You can keep those cookies, loser," he yells, his voice breaking. "Just give me some money. I'm not an animal." Poor Eddie. I turn my back on him. If you're not an animal, you're not having cookies. I carry the bag along for 2 blocks until its weight starts pulling me down. Then I dump everything in a gray garbage can before changing my mind and saving the pack of custard creams. I take one out and place it on my tongue, where it softly dissolves into a mush of dough and cream, till I swallow it disgustedly. The rest of the packet I cast amidst a group of seagulls who tear into it delightedly. In the blink of an eye, they reduce it to crumbs, which a few seconds later are swept away in a whirlwind of wings when I throw myself upon them. Fed them and then chased them. How nice. Good job, William. I head southwards, hoping to find a street that leads back to the inner ring. The apartment buildings here don't feel familiar anymore. I see a canal filled with ink-black water. There isn't even any duckweed there. Fuck is duckweed? Wristwatches and pop music. Through their iron cadence, they have hammered into us the notion that everything happens simultaneously. That we all live at the same time, and that the world is a giant soap opera in which millions of individuals exist concurrently. But what nonsense is that? To get all warm and fuzzy, thinking that people are currently living other lives than I am. As if the here and now isn't enough. People drift in and out of my life, like supporting characters in some kind of epic poem. I wonder what happens if I cast them all aside Shut everything and everyone out till I'm the only one left. There's a tough task ahead, one that I'll have to take care of all by myself. I've played the friendly eccentric for far too long. I have to take my responsibility, put my words into action. Rows of apartment buildings, there seems to be no end to them. The fishermen of Hornerdam, must have sailed here a few meters above where I'm walking. It's strange how easily people bridge spatial distance when creating a bond of community, while far more trivial constructs like time are deemed insurmountable. We feel related to our countrymen who live miles away from us, but we forget our own ancestors. I owe my life to those that came before me. Their blood still flows through my veins, albeit in diluted form. I show more resemblance to them, probably, than to the people that dwell on Earth in this day and age. How I long to return to a time when people were a little more pure. I've always wanted to know what it was like during the Renaissance. You know, it's easy to read it out of a book, but to actually experience it. I love the art. You know, their art was so much better than what we have now. In 20 years' time, this will all be fields. I love bread, but we don't get it often. We had potatoes this morning. Wait, we? The sun's reflecting on the water. I can see the island looming in the distance. It takes a while before we get there. It always takes longer than I remember. We sail a boat without an engine. It's an old boat. We don't have money for a new one. And it's no use anyway. 20 years' time, this will all be fields. Then we'll all become farmers. It smells of Liizen. Water hits the prow of the ship. Today was a good day for fishing. We still have debt to pay off. My father doesn't talk about money much, but I think he's worried. He's always silent during fishing trips. The two of us aren't enough to man the boat, actually. But we don't have any more boys at home, and sometimes we hardly catch enough fish to sell. My uncle sails with my cousin Lamont. Oh, Lamert. Lamert is older than me. We gotta call this guy Lamont because Lamert just sounds too weird. But my father is the strongest. That's why we sail together. In 3 years' time, my little brother will be old enough to come along, but he might have to stay in school. When he grows up, there won't be any fishermen left. In 20 years' time, this will all be fields. Many are registering to work on the dam. I might too, when I'm old enough. They're looking for strong young men. My father doesn't talk about it, but he's glad that there'll at least be work later. There's nothing you can do, he says. Those matters aren't for us to decide. They're going to get their way sooner or later. If they drain the sea, then everything's gone. It'd be better to sell the cutter now and move to one of the new polders. My father's slaving away with the boom. We really need another pair of hands on deck. A crowd of gulls is trailing our ship, hungry for treats. We'll be entering the port soon. Those are wonderful moments with the sun shining on my arms. There really isn't much to do. I breathe the fresh sea air deep into my lungs. It's the scent of fish, the scent of life. We've been fishing on this sea for so long, it's impossible to imagine it not being here. What will happen to our island? Will it become a mountain, rising out above the meadows? I wonder if we'll slowly watch the water drain away, or if it'll just be gone one morning. And what will the seabed look like when it's all open? Could you walk from here to Amsterdam? The fish auction is looming in the distance. I look at the waves roaring between me and the shore. Soon, it won't be a sea of water that lies here, but a sea of golden grain. Golden grain, and waving wheat, and rustling corn. Some matters aren't for us to decide, even if we'd want to. William. Wake up, William. You've dwelled as a fisher among men for too long. Follow me, and I'll return you to the sea. I find myself sitting on a bench by a gas station. A blue Vinny man stops nearby. A morbidly obese woman who can't be older than 30 rolls open her car window, causing the sound of her radio to spill out over the streets. With one movement of her flabby arm, she dumps the contents of her ashtray onto the side of the road before taking off into the night. A dust cloud of putrid, stale ash blows in my direction, making me retch. To think that the fishers lost their livelihood for this. It was destroyed for the low lives and their ashtrays, the cocksure bastards that think they own the place. Time after time, we choose the many over the few, without regard for dignity. The birth of a nation seldom passes without bloodshed. I get up and head back towards the center. I think I'm a hobo now. The city is pulsating with internal combustion and electricity that premeets everything. It's that sensation again that has been plaguing me over the last few months. It's returned in an unprecedentedly pure form. As if time itself is speeding up, the entire city appears to be moving. The sound of cars and the shapes of the houses fuse together to attain a glowy beauty that I have never witnessed before, and the white sky and the gray stones clash in monochrome contrast, forming a collage of textures that jump out from the canvas. The metropolis isn't spatial anymore. It's not a landscape, nor an obstacle. It's purely itself, something of immeasurable proportions which can be contained within the palm of a hand. Nothing's hidden. All is curious, interesting, beautiful. The black behind the countless windows has become penetrable, as if it may as well have been illuminated. I'm aware of every single detail of my environment. The tower blocks behind me appear to be breathing as if they were alive. The overpass to my right seems incorruptible in its concrete majesty, like a memorial to all the angels that have taken flight from it. I observe the birds flying through the air, the reeds, the billboards, a trampled Coke can, 2 aspens side by side. The edges of the large cloud cover hanging over me as beginning to gray, shading all its revolutions in patterns of unprecedented stratification. One more sip. I'm silenced by the intensity of it all. I register every breath of wind as it touches my skin. It smells so fresh. The sensory overload makes my head run wild. I can envision myself walking through a botanical garden, a child still. I'm wearing an itchy sweater that I got for my birthday. The colors are pale, like in an old film. I'm horsing around, then I'm quiet again. I seem uncomfortable. We must be in a greenhouse, because there's a large organ pipe cactus next to me. The light shines through my dark blonde hair. I'm looking back at myself, an annoyed expression on my face. Suddenly we drift closer and closer. We collide. The deafening sound of a car horn shakes me from my dream. I stand there for a while, bent forward, shivering. overwhelmed by an overpowering fatigue. I trip, lose my balance, and stumble away from the street, catching myself against the facade of a building. From where I'm standing, I can see the entire north side of the inner ring. Ahead of me, the Use Tower rises, a dark looming colossus that casts a pitch-black silhouette against the clear night sky. For a moment, it's as if I see stars sparkling around its crown, but then I realize they're warning lights for passing planes. I slide down to the ground, where I remain motionless. The pavement feels cold and damp against my tired limbs, but after a while the heat off my body warms up the moisture that is soaked into my clothes, creating a comfortable layer of protection. A trolley bus trundles by, its poles scanning the catenary wires like the feelers of a monstrous insect. That's a sick way of describing it. Church bells begin to toll. I place my head against my ear to block out the sound, but involuntarily I hear 3 or 4 strokes. I have no idea what I'll do tomorrow. I'm nodding with fatigue. "Are you okay?" a drunken voice calls out. I look up to see the dark figure of a man trying to talk to me. He has a few friends with him who are watching from a distance. "Yeah, no problem," I growl. "Can we take you someplace?" he asks. His manner of speech, though slurred, betrays genuine concern. His friends are giggling stupidly in the background. "I'm okay. You can leave me alone," I reply in a loud, stable voice to make it abruptly clear that there's nothing wrong with me. He looks me over one more time before returning to his friends. "Who the fuck was that?" I hear a female voice screech. "Just a lost sheep," he replies. They burst out in high-pitched shrieks and move on. Those voices again. Those piercing howls. Ridicule's always the right response if your world's a comedy. There's nothing serious left. One day I'll wipe the smiles off their faces. A wind starts to blow. I close my jacket. I look up towards the moon, but the cloud cover's too thick to see anything. The Use Tower appears even larger from the gutter, and has a false shine over it, as if it were painted onto the sky. In the corner of my eye, I see a small, hunchback figure coming my way. It's moving in a dwarfish manner and has a terribly twisted face with wrinkled skin and pointed ears. Frightened, I turn to face it, to realize that it's just a plant dancing in the wind. I'm losing my mind. The lack of sleep must be starting to affect me. I doze off and picture a cutter boat loaded with grain, leaving the harbor under full sail to cast off its golden cargo into the blue depths of the ocean. Exhaust gasses. The dream fades away. The bells toll again. Two lines begin dancing before my eyes, parallel to each other. One is brown, the other red. They're bent in strange angles. Sometimes they appear together, sometimes apart. They're forming patterns, a triangle, a T, but they never ever touch. And then the gray cat from Ryberry passes by. He curls down in front of me and speaks in his deep, baritone voice. It seems to all make sense, what he's telling me. Beautiful, terrible sense. My eyes fill with tears. Yes, yes, I shout at him enthusiastically. That's what I've always wanted to say. but he's gone. What time is it? My brow's wet. I'm awake again, still lying against the facade. Fragments of a starless night sky are visible through the white clouds. While I'm frightened to stay awake, I try to recall the exact words that the cat spoke to me in my dream, but all I can remember are the two dancing lines and the feeling that something was absolutely perfectly in place. I searched my memory for remnants of the lost dream. Was it about the university? About Jasmine? About my mother, maybe? The only thing that keeps coming back are those lines, brown and red, jumping to and fro with flashing lights in the background, enough to drive anyone insane. Could that be the reason I felt so happy? I can't have slept more than half an hour. I feel more tired than ever. Half-heartedly, I attempt to calculate how long I've been out of bed. Probably more than 24 hours. That's a good sign. And everything starts anew. A loud cry. That's a short exclamation, a single burst of noise without cause or echo. It sounded like it came from close by. I look around, but the streets are empty. Clouds are drifting across the firmament at tremendous speeds. At this pace, a clear sky might come before sunrise. I'm curious to see what kind of moon we have. About to get up from the ground, I drink a little, but then I notice a movement to my left. I freeze. For about 3 seconds, I'm staring into the eyes of the most terrifying horror I've ever seen. It's squatting, tensely, a few feet away, as if ready to attack, teeth glistening with mucus. I was about to say with minors. That'd really be creepy. It's only when my eyes have adjusted to the dark that I realize it's just a motorcycle wrapped in a black cover. Losing my shit, man. I pick myself up and cross the road. I can see the university quarter in the distance. The bottle feels cold in my inner pocket. Hey, I feel like I've seen those lights before. Soon I grow accustomed to their gruesome features, the demons that are hidden in every corner of this god-forgotten city, clinging to the gutters like silent gargoyles, motionless until I turn my back on them, after which they perform a fiendish shadow dance in my peripheral vision. I pass straight under the lamppost in an attempt to witness as little of the dark as possible. As long as I focus my gaze on a single point, they tend to stay away. For some time now, a pressure has been building in my lower abdomen. As I sway from the illuminated path, I feel a dizziness come over me. I dive into a back street. I force myself to pee. But just before I finish, I hear something behind me. It's the clicking of heels on stone. I pinch the flow, sending drops of urine flying over my right hand, and hurry away from the sound. After turning a corner, I end up in an alley that leads towards the central square. I finish what I started in a shallow porch. My hand smells, so I splash some liquor over it in an attempt to disinfect the contaminated limb. As I continue onward, I hear those footsteps again. Far away at first, but she's approaching rapidly. Her clothing style and pink accessories radiate mindless conformity. A thick layer of foundation covers her coarse facial features. That face, That potato face, there's something strikingly repulsive about it. Her round, asymmetrical mouth, her incestuous cheekbones, all coated in thick tangerine paint, evoke memories of embalmed pharaohs and laid out crash victims. Wow. Our eyes meet, and I imagine I'm able to discern an expression of scorn in her face. The makeup makes it so hard to be sure, but there's unmistakably something there, and it becomes clearer the closer she gets. She passes. I smell that scent again, that sweet, dank fragrance. And as the distance between us grows, I'm left with the conviction that she positively despises me. That woman. She was looking down on me. I could read it in her body language. And somehow I'm left wondering what she'd base such an opinion on. What in her stunted mind, she'd identify as a despicable trait in me. A little respect? Is that too much to ask for? Or at least a little fear. It's becoming sunrise after all, and she's all alone. She could easily be scared of me. She must regard me as a child, a goody, a clown. What kind of twisted thoughts possesses that girl? For her to look at me with that arrogant expression on her face. What if I had bad intentions? As anger rises within me, I turn around to take a final look at the woman. But to my surprise, I see that she's staring after me, bemusedly. As soon as she notices that I've turned around, she quickly moves away. What's so fascinating about me that makes people stare and giggle? There must be something wrong. I've turned into a drooling idiot, and that makes it, and that while it's actually me that should be looking down on them. I'll wipe that smug grin off her face, and in 5 steps I've bridged the distance. I grab her by her suede jacket, which feels soft and fragile to my touch, as though it were her bare skin. She doesn't scream as I drag her into the porch where I just urinated, and I force her up against the wall, sliding her sideways along the brickwork until she comes to a shivering halt against the drain pipe. She's on the ground, my knee in her back, a doll in my clutches. And for an instant, for half a second, it's as if I'm no longer there. I had a feeling William was gonna snap. Please. Please, she stammers. I turn her face towards the light to see her twisted features, her tearing eyes. And for some reason, her gaze makes me shrink back. It isn't so much the look of despair that touches me, but rather something I'll describe as resignation. Her eyes betray the tired conviction that the harm has already been done. She isn't ungrateful or arrogant. She's just a victim, like all of us. It's not her fault. I let go of her. It takes her a while to realize that she's free, and she runs away silently. It's so incredibly hot. Way to go, William. You've assaulted a woman and scarred her for life. You don't know what she's going through in her life, dude. My pocket vibrates and keeps on vibrating. Even after I take out the plastic parasite, the dead thing keeps on humming inexplicably in my hand. With all of my strength, I hurl the phone against the pavement, and it's as if the last wire of domination finally slips away when I leave the broken circuit boards behind. I'd hit his phone ring if it was dead. I have nowhere to go. I walk back towards the N723. If I go to bed now, I'll wake up in about 16 hours and everything will turn out to be a dream. But I'm too clear of mind to fool myself like that. In 20 minutes, she'll have passed my description to the police, so that they can start hunting me down. My heart's pounding. If something's to happen in my life, something profound and all-changing, it must be now. The mechanism has been set in motion. I take out the bottle, and as I fill my mouth with liquor, the warm glow spreads throughout my body again, making the fear all that more manageable. My strength has become tense. I can do something. The night isn't over yet. I take off my jacket, throw it into a garbage can, and finish the last of the gin. The pressure on my eyes is increasing. My head is filled with thoughts, the origin of which I can hardly trace. Images appear on my retina, rooted there like atavisms, waiting to be revealed. They turn me into a vehicle of age-old thoughts and urges. A red mist comes over me, a feverish dream of visions and sensations of the greatest kind. This ball on which we live, where it's warm in winter, and where the night sky shines a pearly white. It rains here in January because the snow melts high up in the atmosphere, long before it reaches the ground. It changes something in the people. Makes them preoccupied with facts and quipids and trivialities. They seem oblivious to all the aberrations that surround us. Now there's something wrong with the lake that was once a sea. As if in tammering something so large, they also tame the people that lived around it. Certain things are better left alone. They don't willingly submit to the games of men, but develop a grudge that slowly waxes and sleeps under the soil for decades. Hunger and time clothe me now and write the history of the island. I wonder what the new century has in store for us, what wars will rage and what atrocities will be committed. The turbines and skyscrapers of today will form the ruins of the future. Majoring in literature will help you fulfill your true potential. Now I'm seeing shit over here. They told me at college introduction. But like a storm, I will rage over the battlefields of Europe, looking for survivors to add to my ranks. I try not to think about the poor woman anymore. She was just a victim, a martyr. Just like you, Jasmine. Without you, it would never come to this. I wouldn't be able to think what I'm thinking now. Behind every great man stands a far greater woman. Far greater, no matter how little they are. My stomach curdles with hunger. It's the first time in months that I feel that lonely sensation haunting through my innards again, and it consoles me, because it must mean that I'm alive. It's getting warmer, and the sleep deprivation doesn't bother me anymore. Morning rush hour has started on the motorway, and 100,000 cars charge by. Embodying speed and steely romanticism, like devils born from the womb of iron maidens, they kick up whirlwinds that blow dirt and crumbs of asphalt into my eyes. Sorry. The tears turn everything into a haze. The sun is rising. I look at my left hand, and to my astonishment, it appears to be completely covered in blood. But when I turn around, I see the vermilion-colored sunlight reflecting in the windows of a caravan of automobiles, bathing my entire body in the deepest red. The sun, which I saw setting into a bed of immaculate orange just a heartbeat ago, has returned from its cosmic voyage to cast its beams upon an earth that has forever changed. A tropical wind plays through my shirt and blows my hair backwards. The rustling of fields to my right merges with the noise of the road into a continuous tone that seems to be swelling in inexplicable crescendo. I'm hot, so terribly hot, that I strip down to the waist. Dude, The climate here has become so mild that winters pass by unnoticed. There isn't any real cold anymore. Winter has degenerated into an unrelenting rain time. And suddenly, everything falls into place and becomes clearer than ever before. Ever since the water turned brackish, we've become lazy and content. They drained a beautiful sea to make place for shopping malls and apartment buildings where the masses dwell. But it's not real. The Baldur's no more than a shadow world. Only death breeds in the stagnant lake. And together with the sea, the people's spirits has washed away. We're sedentary now, preoccupied, divided. No common cries sound from our mouths. But I can change it all. Only I, now, can bring this land back to what it used to be. I can teach them, those pasty lowlives, what it means to really live. I want to be the breach in the dike that sets forth the deluge to cleanse this muddy soil once and for all. And as the sun rises higher above the horizon, its beams grow brighter. Sorry, I keep seeing that as glow. They color a golden red that reflects on the asphalt before me, turning the tarmac into a river of ruby that flows straight through the fields. It's strange. A river, here in the polder. For where can all the water run off to? This must be the great flood I predicted. Today, the sun rises for the last time over Bremersburg. In the course of the day, the ocean will recapture the last remaining acres of land from humanity. We'll be dependent on each other again, fighting like the pioneers of old against the common enemy in the sea. The new light smiles upon me triumphantly. Too long, I've journeyed through inhospitable darkness, worried about futilities, slept, waited. But soon the entire nation will bathe in an eternal cleansing water. To the Ark! And the exhausts of the endless rows of cars fit together like a giant organ. The roaring of their engines grow louder and louder until they distort into a sacred interplay that brings my entire being into a state of divine ecstasy. Dissonant sounds that vaguely recall the forgotten symphonies of Dippenbrock. My lungs fill slowly with the unfiltered fumes, but it doesn't bother me anymore. The circumstances are perfect now. The morning red, casually spreading, plunging the entire motorway in an unreal sheen. And when I turn around, I see Bremersburg. The apartment buildings, the towers, the canals of the forsaken city. They're all colored bright red by the dawning sun, as if it were a scene from hell. And in the distance, something catches my attention. It's a light blue sedan traveling my way. I capture a glimpse of the driver. She's in her early 30s, dark brown hair, youthful features. She seems so familiar. I must have stored her face somewhere deep inside my subconscious, because she answers perfectly to all the desires coursing through my poor body. This is the sign I've been searching for. She must have always known, always been here, waiting for me. Shit. Turned my damn eyelid inside out just now, my damn shirt. Holy hell, that hurt. Waiting for me to finally blossom. All I feel is an irresistible urge to be with her. William, what the hell has happened to you, buddy? You went from a drunk to I don't know what the hell. Part 5, Epilogue / Revival. So, my friends, we are gonna stop here. So, I truly thank you guys for joining me for this next chapter of the Raintime. There's so many questions, so little answers. We're stopping a little bit short today so that I can finish recording some of the other games I have. I do apologize for Get Me Bro not coming out on time. I did miss the tournaments that were happening this past weekend. Like I've said, I've had a lot going on. I'm trying to do a lot of different things all at once, but don't worry, I'm going to catch up. And once I catch up, everything will come back out. You know, Raintime on Saturday, Sunday, Get Me Bro, and now we have Life is Strange going on probably, I'm thinking, Tuesdays and Thursdays, maybe Fridays. It'll be one of those days or all of those days, because I just bought the entire thing, so I guess we'll find out what happens. And then Wednesdays you can join me on Twitch, #Liizen, of course, and I'll be playing, I guess, whatever comes my way or whatever I really feel like playing for about an hour or two. I thank you guys for watching this. Subscribe below, click the bell to be notified every single time a new video comes out. I truly appreciate it. I'm on my journey to my first 100 subscribers, so every time you guys watch a video, it helps me on that journey. When you share them, when you like them, even when you comment, you know, keep the conversation going. There's plenty to talk about, especially with the Raintime. You know, our realities are distorted. I've even started seeing weird shit out of the corner of my eye earlier. Happy to share this with you. See you guys on the next video.